Mike Tyson sat alone in the darkness of his New Jersey mansion at 3:17 a.m. on November 14th, 1988. He was 22 years old, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, worth over $50 million, and he was about to kill himself. The gun lay on a coffee table in front of him, a .38 special, loaded, safety off. He'd been staring at it for 2 hours, working up the courage. The house was empty. His wife was gone. His entourage was dismissed. Nobody would find him until morning. That was the plan. He picked up the gun, felt its weight, put it down again, picked it back up. Then headlights swept through the living room windows. Tyson froze. Who the hell was coming to his house at 3 a.m.? He hadn't called anyone, hadn't told anyone what he was planning. He put the gun back on the table and walked to the window. Before we continue with the story, you can support us by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Don't forget to write in the comments where you're watching from and how old you are. Let's continue. A black Mercedes was pulling into his circular driveway. The engine cut off. The driver's door opened. And Muhammad Ali, trembling, moving slowly, ravaged by Parkinson's disease, stepped out into the cold November night. Tyson's breath caught. Muhammad Ali, at his house, at 3 in the morning. How did he know? How could he possibly know? The doorbell rang. Tyson looked at the gun on his coffee table, looked at the door, looked back at the gun, and made a choice that would save his life. He walked to the door and opened it. Muhammad Ali stood there, his hands shaking from Parkinson's, his face showing the effort it had taken to drive 4 hours in the middle of the night. But his eyes were clear, focused, and full of something Tyson hadn't seen in months: genuine concern. "Mike," Ali said, his voice barely above a whisper because Parkinson's had stolen most of his volume. "Can I come in?" Tyson stood there, frozen. Part of him wanted to slam the door, go back to the gun, finish what he'd started. But another part, the part that had worshipped Muhammad Ali since childhood, that had watched every fight on grainy VHS tapes, that had dreamed of being just like him, that part stepped aside. "How did you know?" Tyson asked as Ali walked into the living room. Ali saw the gun immediately. His expression didn't change. No shock, no fear, no judgment. Just sadness. He sat down on the couch, his movements slow and deliberate, and gestured for Tyson to sit. "I always know," Ali said quietly, "when a fighter's in trouble." What happened over the next 6 hours, from 3:20 a.m. until dawn broke at 9:15 a.m., would remain mostly private. No media, no cameras, no witnesses except 2 men sitting in a dark living room, one fighting Parkinson's disease, the other fighting the urge to end his life. But what we do know, from Tyson's later accounts, from the few details Ali shared with close friends, is that Muhammad Ali drove 4 hours in the middle of the night to save a young man he barely knew. And that by talking about his own darkness, his own depression, his own moments of wanting to die, Ali gave Mike Tyson a reason to live. To understand why Mike Tyson had a loaded gun on his coffee table at 3 a.m., you need to understand what the 6 months before that night had been like. June 27th, 1988. Mike Tyson knocked out Michael Spinks in 91 seconds. He was undefeated, undisputed, unstoppable. The youngest heavyweight champion in history. The most feared fighter on the planet. Everything was perfect, except it wasn't. Cus D'Amato, Tyson's trainer, mentor, and the only father figure he'd ever known, had died in November 1985. For 3 years, Tyson had been able to push down the grief by staying busy, fighting, training, winning. But after the Spinks fight, the schedule slowed down. No immediate opponent, no training camp, nothing to distract him. And the grief came flooding back. Cus had found Tyson in a juvenile detention center when he was 13 years old. A street kid from Brownsville, Brooklyn, angry at the world, heading toward prison or death. Cus had seen something in him, had taken him in, had raised him, trained him, loved him, had given him discipline, purpose, a future. "Without Cus," Tyson would say later, "I'm just a punk from Brooklyn. He made me, and when he died, I didn't know who I was anymore." After the Spinks fight, Tyson tried to fill the void. He threw parties, bought cars, married actress Robin Givens in a whirlwind romance. But nothing worked. The parties felt empty. The cars meant nothing. And the marriage, publicly, it looked perfect. Privately, it was falling apart. In September 1988, Robin Givens did an interview on national television with Barbara Walters. Sitting next to Tyson, she described their marriage as torture and said Tyson was manic depressive. She made him look unstable, violent, disturbed. The interview aired to 25 million people. Tyson sat there, silent, humiliated, and something broke inside him. By November, Givens had filed for divorce. The entourage Tyson had surrounded himself with hangers-on, yes men, people who only wanted his money. They were circling, sensing weakness, waiting to grab whatever they could before everything collapsed. Tyson was alone, 22 years old, heavyweight champion of the world, and completely, devastatingly alone. On November 13th, he dismissed everyone, sent his security home, told his manager he needed space, locked himself in his mansion with a bottle of vodka and a gun. I sat there thinking about Cus, Tyson said years later, about how he'd be so disappointed in what I'd become, how I'd let him down, how I'd turned into exactly what he'd saved me from being. Just another punk who wasted his potential. And I thought, maybe it's better if I just end it. Maybe that's the only way out. He called one person that night, not to say goodbye, just to hear a familiar voice. Camille Ewald. The woman who'd opened her home to Tyson when Cus brought him from Brooklyn, who'd fed him and cared for him and treated him like a grandson. Camille. Tyson's voice was slurred from vodka. I just wanted to say thank you. For everything. Camille knew immediately. She'd worked with troubled kids for decades. She recognized the tone, the finality, the goodbye disguised as gratitude. Michael, she said carefully, where are you? Home. Alone. Stay there. Promise me you'll stay there. I will. Promise me, Michael. I promise. The moment Tyson hung up, Camille called the one person she thought might be able to reach him. The one fighter who'd been through his own hell and come out the other side. The one man who understood what it meant to have everything and still feel empty. She called Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was asleep at his Michigan home when the phone rang at 11:30 p.m. His wife Lonnie answered, listened, then woke Ali. It's Camille Ewald, Lonnie said. She says Mike Tyson's in trouble. Ali sat up slowly. Parkinson's made every movement deliberate now. What kind of trouble? Lonnie's expression told him everything. The worst kind. Ollie was already getting dressed. Where is he? New Jersey. His mansion. That's 4 hours. Muhammad, you can barely drive during the day. At night, with Parkinson's. I'm going. Ollie's voice was firm. That boy needs help. Cuz will want me to go. Lonnie knew there was no arguing. She helped Ollie get dressed, packed him water and medication, and watched him climb into his Mercedes with a determination that reminded her why she'd fallen in love with this man. Ollie drove through the night. His hands shook on the steering wheel from Parkinson's. Several times he had to pull over when the tremors got too bad. But he kept going, because somewhere in New Jersey, a 22-year-old kid who'd lost his way was sitting alone with a gun. During the drive, Ollie thought about his own dark times. 1967, when they'd stripped him of his title and banned him from boxing for refusing the draft. The years of exile, the depression, the moments when he'd wondered if standing on principle had been worth losing everything. He thought about the nights he'd sat alone, feeling like a failure, like his best years were behind him, like maybe the government and the critics were right. Maybe he was just a loudmouth troublemaker who'd thrown away his career for nothing. He'd never told anyone about the times he'd thought about ending it, about the moments when the depression was so heavy he couldn't see a way forward. But he'd survived. He'd found reasons to keep going. And now, driving through the darkness toward Mike Tyson's mansion, Ollie understood why he'd survived those moments, so he could save someone else from theirs. At 3:15 a.m., Ollie pulled into Tyson's circular driveway. The house was dark except for one light in what looked like the living room. Ollie sat in his car for a moment, gathering strength. The Parkinson's was worse at night. His body wanted rest. But Mike Tyson needed him. Ollie got out of the car and walked to the door. Each step was an effort. Each movement fought against muscles that didn't respond the way they used to. But he made it to the door and rang the bell. And when Mike Tyson opened that door, When Ollie saw the young man's eyes, red from crying, desperate, hopeless, he knew he'd made the right choice. "Mike," Ollie said, "can I come in?" They sat in Tyson's living room. Ollie on the couch, Tyson in a chair across from him, the gun still on the coffee table between them like an uninvited guest. For the first few minutes, neither spoke. Ollie just sat there, his hands trembling in his lap, his breathing steady, his presence somehow filling the room despite the Parkinson's that had reduced his once mighty body to tremors and slowness. Finally, Tyson broke the silence. "Why are you here?" "Camille called me. She was worried. I told her I was fine." "You lied." Ali's voice was gentle but direct. "I know what lying looks like. I've done it myself." Tyson looked at the gun. "You should go. This isn't your problem. It is my problem." Ali leaned forward, the movement taking effort. "You're a fighter. I'm a fighter. We're connected. And when one fighter's in trouble, the others show up. That's how it works." Nobody else showed up. "I'm here." Tyson's jaw clenched. "You don't understand. You're Muhammad Ali. Everyone loves you. You're the greatest. You don't know what it's like to lose everything." Ali interrupted. "To have the world turn against you? To feel like all your success means nothing? To want to die because the pain of living is too much?" Tyson stared at him. "Mike, I know exactly what that's like. And that's why I drove 4 hours to get here. Because I've been where you are. And I'm still here. And if I can survive it, you can too." "Ow!" Tyson's voice cracked. "How did you survive it?" And Ollie began to talk. Not about his victories or his championships or his fame, but about the darkness, the depression, the moments when he'd wondered if it was all worth it. 1967, Ollie said. "They took my title, banned me from boxing. I was 25 years old in my prime, and suddenly I couldn't do the only thing I'd ever been good at. Couldn't fight, couldn't earn money, couldn't be who I was." Ollie's hands shook worse as he talked. Parkinson's and emotion combining. "For 3.5 years, I had nothing. No fights, no income. My reputation destroyed. Half the country calling me a traitor, a coward, a draft dodger. And you know what the worst part was?" Tyson shook his head. The doubt. The voice in my head asking, did I make the wrong choice? Should I have just gone to Vietnam? Should I have compromised my principles? Was standing up for what I believed in worth losing everything? "What did you do?" Tyson asked. "I wanted to quit. Wanted to give up. There were nights when everyone was asleep and I was alone, when I thought about just disappearing. Maybe that would be easier. Maybe I wasn't strong enough for this." Ollie looked directly at Tyson. "There was one night in 1968. I was in a hotel room in Chicago. I tried to fight that day, want to get back in the ring, prove I was still the champ. But every venue turned me down. Nobody would book me. Nobody wanted to risk the controversy. And I sat in that hotel room thinking, I'm never going to fight again. My career is over. I'm 26 years old, and I'm finished." "What stopped you?" Tyson whispered. "I thought about my daughters, about them growing up and asking what happened to their father. And I realized, if I gave up, if I quit, then everyone who tried to break me would win. The government that stripped my title, the critics who call me names, all of them would be right. They'd have beaten Muhammad Ali." Ali's voice grew stronger. "And I decided I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. I was going to survive. I was going to come back. I was going to prove that standing on principle, even when it costs you everything, is worth it." "Did you?" Tyson asked. 1970, the Supreme Court reinstated my license. 1971, I fought Joe Frazier. Lost that one, but I kept fighting, kept coming back. And in 1974, in Zaire, I became heavyweight champion again. 7 years after they took my title. 7 years of darkness. 7 years of doubt. But I made it through. Ollie leaned back, exhausted from talking. Parkinson's made speech difficult and tiring. "Mike, I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you this so you understand. The darkness doesn't last forever. The pain doesn't last forever. If you can survive tonight, just tonight, tomorrow becomes possible. And if you can survive tomorrow, the next day becomes possible. One day at a time. One night at a time." Tyson was crying now, silent tears running down his face. "But I lost Cus. I lost the person who made me who I am. Without him, I don't know how to be. I understand, Ali said. I lost people too. Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad. People who shaped me, taught me, gave me identity. And when they were gone, I had to figure out who I was without them. It was hard. The hardest thing I ever did. But I found out something important. What? That what they gave me didn't die with them. Cus taught you discipline, focus, how to fight, how to be a warrior. That's in you now. It doesn't go away just because he's gone. You carry him with you. Everything he taught you, everything he believed about you, that's yours forever. By 5 a.m., they'd been talking for almost 2 hours. The gun was still on the coffee table, but neither of them was looking at it anymore. Tyson was sitting forward now, engaged, asking questions, listening to Ali's stories about exile, depression, comeback. How did you deal with people who betrayed you? Tyson asked. After your comeback, after you were champion again, how did you trust anyone? Ali thought about that. I didn't, not for a long time. But eventually I realized not trusting anyone is just another way of being alone. And being alone is what kills you, not the betrayals, the loneliness. So what do? You be careful. You be smart. But you don't close yourself off completely. You find one person, maybe two, who've earned your trust. And you let them in. Not everyone. Just the ones who show up when it's hard. When there's nothing in it for them. Those are the real ones. Camille called you, Tyson said quietly. She showed up. She did. And you drove 4 hours. At 3 a.m. With Parkinson's. Tyson's voice broke. You showed up. Because you matter, Mike. Not because you're heavyweight champion. Not because you're famous. But because you're a person. A young man who's hurting. And that's enough reason. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the darkness was beginning to fade. Not dawn yet, but that pre-dawn gray that promises morning is coming. Can I tell you something? Tyson said. Something I haven't told anyone. Of course. I've been having these dreams. About Cuz. He's disappointed in me. Ashamed of what I've become. The parties, the marriage disaster, the way I've let people use me. In the dreams, he looks at me and just shakes his head. Like I've failed him. Mike, listen to me. Ali's voice was firm. Cuz loved you. Really loved you. The way a father loves a son. And when you love someone like that, you don't stop loving them just because they make mistakes. You don't stop being proud of them just because they stumble. But I've made so many mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I've made more mistakes than I can count. But mistakes don't define you. What defines you is what you do after the mistake. Whether you learn from it. Whether you keep going. Ali leaned forward. If Cuz were here right now, you know what he'd say? He'd say, get up. Dust yourself off. Start again. Because that's what fighters do. We get knocked down. We get up. That's the whole sport. That's the whole life. But what if I can't? Tyson's voice was small. Vulnerable. What if I'm too broken? You're not broken. You're hurt. There's a difference. Broken means beyond repair. Hurt means it needs time to heal. You're hurt, Mike. But you can heal. By 6 a.m., the sky outside was lightening. The pre-dawn gray was giving way to pale blue. Inside, Tyson and Ali had moved from depression to practical matters. What Tyson needed to do next, who could help him, how to rebuild. First thing, Ali said, you need to talk to someone. A professional. A therapist who understands depression. People will find out. The media, let them find out. Who cares? Half the world deals with depression. It's not a weakness. It's an illness. Like a broken arm. You don't feel ashamed about a broken arm. You get it treated. But I'm supposed to be strong. I'm heavyweight champion. Mike, look at me. Ali gestured to his trembling hands. Look at what Parkinson's has done to my body. I can barely talk. I can barely walk. I shake all the time. And you know what? I'm still strong. Because strength isn't about your body. It's about your mind. Your spirit. Your willingness to keep going even when it's hard. Ali's voice grew passionate. Or as passionate as Parkinson's allowed. The strongest thing you can do right now is admit you need help. That takes more courage than any fight, any knockout, any championship. Real courage is saying, I'm hurting and I need support. That's what warriors do. Tyson was quiet for a long time. Then, will you help me find someone? A therapist? Yes. I'll make some calls today. We'll find you someone good. Someone who understands athletes, understands pressure, understands what you're going through. And will you? Tyson hesitated. Will you stay in touch? Check on me. Mike, I'm going to be annoying. I'm going to call you every week. Maybe more. I'm going to make sure you're doing the work, getting the help, taking care of yourself. Because that's what Cuz would want me to do. And that's what I want to do. Tyson stood up, walked over to the coffee table, picked up the gun. Ollie tensed slightly. 6 hours of talking. Was it all about to fall apart now? But Tyson didn't point the gun at himself. He ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, and set both pieces on the table separately. Then he looked at Ollie. I'm not going to do it. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. But I need help. Real help. I can't do this alone anymore. Ollie stood, slowly, carefully, his Parkinson's making the movement difficult. He walked over to Tyson and put his shaking hands on the young man's shoulders. You're not alone. Not anymore. You've got me. You've got Camille. You got people who care whether you wake up tomorrow. And that's enough. That's always enough. Tyson hugged him. And Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer who ever lived, now reduced by disease to trembling and slowness, held this broken 22-year-old champion and let him cry. As dawn fully broke, they moved to the kitchen. Ali made coffee, his hands shaking so badly that Tyson had to help him pour. They sat at the kitchen table and talked about practical things. Next steps, phone calls to make, people to contact. I need to tell you something, Tyson said, and it's going to sound crazy. Tell me. Part of me is angry that you came. Part of me wanted to do it, wanted the pain to stop. And you showing up, you took away my choice. I know, Ali said, and I'm not sorry, because that pain you're feeling, it's lying to you. It's telling you that death is the only way out. But it's wrong. There are other ways, better ways. And my job tonight was to keep you alive long enough to find them. What if I still want to do it? Later? What if the help doesn't work? Then you call me. Anytime, day or night. You call me and we talk. For as long as it takes. Every single time you feel like this, you call me. And eventually, I promise you this, eventually the times between the calls will get longer. The darkness will get lighter. And one day, you'll realize you haven't thought about it in weeks, months. And that's when you'll know you made it through. They talked until 9 a.m. 6 hours total. The longest conversation Mike Tyson ever had. The most important conversation of his life. When Ollie finally stood to leave, Tyson walked him to his car. The morning was bright and cold. The gun was still on the kitchen table, disassembled, harmless. Tyson had promised to get rid of it. Ollie believed him. Thank you, Tyson said. I don't know why you did this. Why you drove 4 hours in the middle of the night. But thank you. You saved my life. You would have done the same for me, Ollie said. No, Tyson shook his head. I don't think I would have. I'm not that good of a person. Yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. But you will. I promise you. You're going to come through this. And when you do, you're going to help someone else the way I helped you tonight. And that's how it works. That's how we save each other. Ollie got in his car, started the engine, rolled down the window. Mike, one more thing. Yeah, Cuz we'll be proud of you for choosing to live, for choosing to get help, for choosing to fight through the darkness instead of surrendering to it. That's what he taught you. That's what fighters do. And that's what you did tonight. Tyson couldn't speak, just nodded, tears streaming down his face again. Ollie drove away as the sun came up over New Jersey. And Mike Tyson stood in his driveway, watching the car disappear, and thought, I'm going to live. I'm going to survive this. I'm going to be okay. Mike Tyson got help. Real help. He started therapy the following week. A psychiatrist, Ollie, connected him with someone who specialized in depression and trauma. It was hard. Some days were worse than others. But Tyson kept going. True to his word, Ollie called every week. Sometimes more. The conversations were never as long as that first night. Ali's Parkinson's made extended talking difficult. But even a 5-minute check-in meant everything. It meant someone cared. Someone was watching. Someone would notice if Tyson disappeared. Over the next few years, their relationship deepened. Tyson would visit Ollie when he was fighting on the East Coast. They'd have dinner, Tyson doing most of the talking since Ali's speech had deteriorated. They'd watch old fights together. And sometimes, when Tyson was struggling, Ollie would just sit with him. No words necessary, just presence. In interviews over the years, Tyson would occasionally reference a rough time in 1988. He never gave details, never mentioned the gun, never violated the privacy of that night. But people close to him knew that something had happened, knew that Muhammad Ali had shown up when it mattered most. In 2016, when Muhammad Ali died, Mike Tyson was devastated. He released a statement. Muhammad Ali was the greatest boxer of all time. But to me, he was more than that. He was a friend who showed up when I needed him most. He saved my life, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that gift. At Ali's funeral, Tyson was asked to speak. He stood at the podium, this intimidating, frightening man known for violence and aggression, and his voice broke. "There was a night," Tyson said, "when I was very young and very lost. And Muhammad Ali drove 4 hours in the middle of the night to sit with me, to talk to me, to save me. He didn't have to do that. He barely knew me, but he came anyway, because that's who he was. He showed up for people, even when it was hard, even when they couldn't do anything for him in return." Tyson paused, wiping his eyes. "I'm alive today because Muhammad Ali cared enough to show up. I have children because he showed up. I have a life because he showed up. And I will never, never be able to repay that debt. All I can do is try to be the kind of person who shows up for others the way he showed up for me." The church was silent except for the sound of crying, because everyone understood that they were witnessing something profound. Mike Tyson, one of the most feared fighters in history, revealing the moment someone saved him from himself. The story of what happened between Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson on November 14th, 1988, is rarely told in full. Both men kept most of the details private. But what we do know is enough to understand something crucial about heroism, about compassion, about what it means to show up for someone who's drowning. Muhammad Ali could have ignored Camille's call, could have said it wasn't his responsibility, could have stayed in bed. His Parkinson's was bad enough that a 4-hour drive in the middle of the night was genuinely dangerous. But he went anyway, because a young fighter was in trouble. And that was enough. The 6 hours they spent together, from 3:20 a.m. to 9:15 a.m., wasn't dramatic intervention. There were no heroic gestures, no dramatic moments. Just two men talking in the darkness. One sharing his pain, the other sharing his survival. One contemplating death, the other offering life. That's what saved Mike Tyson. Not Ali's fame, or his legend, or his championship record, but his willingness to be vulnerable. To admit he'd been in dark places too. To share his depression, his doubts, his moments of wanting to quit. To prove that darkness doesn't last forever if you can survive one more night. Years later, Tyson would say, "People think Muhammad Ali saved my life that night by talking me out of suicide. But that's not what happened. He saved my life by showing me I wasn't alone. By proving that even the greatest champion in history had struggled with the same things I was struggling with. That's what gave me hope. Not that he was strong, but that he'd been weak and survived it. That's the real lesson of that November night. Not that heroes don't struggle, but that they survive the struggle and then use that survival to help others. Not that darkness doesn't exist, but that it can be endured. Not that pain isn't real, but that it isn't permanent." Muhammad Ali fought many battles in his life, in the ring and out. But the battle he fought between 3 a.m. and 9 a.m. on November 14th, 1988, sitting in Mike Tyson's living room, talking through the darkness, keeping a suicidal 22-year-old alive until dawn, that might have been his most important victory. Because he didn't just save Mike Tyson's life. He saved Mike Tyson's future, his children, his second career, his redemption arc, all the good Tyson would do in the decades to come. All of it was possible because Muhammad Ali drove 4 hours in the middle of the night and said, "I've been where you are, and I'm still here. And if I can survive it, you can too." That's what makes someone the greatest. Not the championships won, not the records broken, but the lives saved, the darkness dispelled, the hope given when everything feels hopeless. Mike Tyson was going to kill himself on November 14th, 1988. But Muhammad Ali showed up at 3 a.m. and talked for 6 hours and gave Tyson a reason to see sunrise. And that sunrise became tomorrow. And tomorrow became next week. And next week became years. And years became a lifetime. All because one fighter showed up for another when it mattered most.